In a restaurant, our waiter called me by my secret nickname. My husband froze. "You look ravishing in that dress, Kitty, though you know I prefer you on red." That was what he said to me, and my heart stopped. The waiter at the restaurant, the same restaurant I was in with my husband, and Umar, my husband, heard. He heard our waiter call me by my secret nickname, and he just froze. That evening has been the start of my hell on earth. Umar has ensured that he has tortured me every day since then, and it's just been so horrible, Dot. Imagine having to live with a man who cannot bear being in the same room as you, or even talk to you at all. Imagine not having to know what his next actions or line of thoughts are. I've spent the last month wishing that Umar would at least talk to me. I've tried everything. I've called, texted, begged, and cried. I've even gone to his office just to get Umar to forgive me, but nothing, and I'm so frustrated. Now I wish that I had denied everything until the end. Maybe if I hadn't fallen into Umar's trap that night and confessed everything, then things will never be this way between us. Umar and I weren't always this way. My name is Aisha. I'm 25 years old, and Umar and I, we've been married for 6 years now. Our 6th anniversary had been that day, when everything turned out horrible. Umar and I met at a wedding, my cousin's wedding. He was the groom's friend and the best man too, and I remember how easily we connected. Umar and I spent most of the time talking and getting to know each other. After the wedding, Umar got my number. We started talking over the phone, we grew close, and we eventually started dating. Umar and I dated for about 6 months before he asked me to marry him. I remember how special that day had been for me. Umar had proposed to me on my birthday, in front of our friends and my family. He knew how I had always fancied grand proposals, and he made my dreams come through. Everything went on perfectly after that until it wasn't. Umar's mother opposed our marriage. She had wanted Umar to marry the girl she had chosen for him, who turned out to be her close friend's daughter, Umar's childhood friend. She believed that I was only pretending to be a good Muslim girl, and she also believed that I didn't deserve her son. But Umar was quite stubborn, and we ended up getting married against her wishes. Our first 2 years of marriage had been really great. Umar loved me, and he was always making sure I knew that. He was romantic, kind, and sweet to me. He also bought me gifts nearly every time. Even after we got married, I couldn't give him kids. Umar never complained. He always was quick to defend me from anyone who questioned my inability to have kids. When we found out that I could never get pregnant, because of some complications from a surgery I had years ago for a medical condition, Umar was the one who encouraged me. He told me he didn't care about it, and I thought myself lucky to have him. But that feeling slowly began to fade away over time. I didn't feel lucky that I had Umar, even though Umar never gave me reasons to believe otherwise. I started to feel really lonely and sad and bitter. For some reason that I didn't understand, I felt caged, and I thought that with time the feeling would go away, that I would be normal again. But the feelings just grew worse. I couldn't shake it off. It really felt like I was trapped. I started to hate the way I had to dress. I've worn khimar for most of my life. But after marriage, I decided to dress even more conservatively. I included a niqab in my dressing, although Umar had been against it, but I insisted. It had actually been a way to show Umar's mother that I was fit for her son, Dot, and it worked. When I covered myself completely, she was pleased with my decision. But I hated it. I hated that I didn't look like the other girls. I hated that I couldn't wear the things that they wore. It didn't help matters that Umar insisted that I become a housewife. He told me that from the start of the relationship, and I agreed initially. I really never liked working, Dot. And most of the men around where I come from prefer their women to be dependent on them, so I never minded. But I guess it also contributed to the reasons why I started to feel that way. Especially after meeting my new friends, 2 girls who lived next door to Umar and I. They moved in 3 years after we lived there. I envied both of them. They both looked so free, like women who didn't have any care in the world. They dressed the way they wanted, and they went out all the time. They would tease me many times about my dresses, and at first I didn't care, but I started to feel self-conscious, and somehow I blamed Umar for everything. Umar didn't know about my friendship with the 2 girls. I only went over to their place whenever he was at work. I was scared he would insist that I stopped being friends with them. I was easily influenced by them. One time, they had given me a dress to wear. They wanted to see what I looked like underneath my clothes, and I agreed. I wore the clothes they gave me. I remember how sexy I thought I looked. My friends thought so too. They even took a picture of me in the dress, and they gave it to me. Every day after that, I would stare at the picture and compare that girl to my fully clothed self. And I wanted to be her so badly that I made a mistake. I cheated on my husband, not once but twice, and with 2 different men. The first time had really been a mistake, and I did regret it, a lot after it happened. But it was the moment where everything just changed. Umar was out of town that day. He had gone on a business trip. He wouldn't be back until after 2 days. And my friends, they convinced me to go to a party. They did everything for me, the makeup, the extremely short dress I wore, and even the heels that matched it. And we went at night. There was loud music and strangers kept dancing together. I was excited, but also uncomfortable. But my friends bought drinks. They told me it would help me loosen up, and I drank them, glass after glass until I felt so giddy. I also joined the strangers dancing, and I danced until I could barely feel my feet. And then the stranger who I danced with, he offered to buy me more drinks. And I followed him, all the way to the bar. He made stupid jokes, and I remember laughing too hard. When he finally asked me to go with him to his place, I agreed. I couldn't find my friends anymore, and I thought, honestly, I don't know what I thought. All I knew was that I followed that stranger home and we had sex. And I remember everything, even though it was alcohol-driven sex. I remembered how differently I felt having another man, who wasn't Umar, sleeping with me. But the next morning, I quickly rushed out. I was panicking. Luckily, Umar still wasn't home, but I couldn't help but feel really guilty. But not because I cheated. It was because I enjoyed the sex a little more than I expected. I told no one about it, not even my friends. It was meant to be my little dark secret. I lied to them that we only had drinks. And then I booked a cab home. My lies were easily believed because I came home hours before they did, so no one saw me sneaking back into the house. Although I kept the dress they gave me, I hid it at the back of my wardrobe. I kept it as some sort of souvenir from my wild night because I promised myself that I wouldn't do it again. But then words are easier to say, right? But if only I had stopped after that first mistake. It became really hard for me to cope with my old self after that night. I kept dreaming of my time with the stranger. And what made it worse was that Umar barely paid me attention. He had to develop a project. And he spent most of his time away from home. Even when he did come back, he was usually tired or too excited to talk about work to care about me. We didn't have as much sex when we first got married, but after the work started, it became almost nothing. I guess it wouldn't have meant anything to me. If I had never slept with that stranger, I wouldn't have minded so much about sex, but I did, and it was driving me insane, so much so that I went back to that club after a year had passed, hoping I would find that stranger again. I went back in the exact dress. I didn't have any other sexy dress anyway. My friends had moved away by then. One of them got a job in another city, and the other couldn't manage the rent alone, so she had to go with her. It made me even more lonely after they left, and stupidly desperate to find some new distraction. Umar was out for work again. This time he was gone for a week when I got to that club. I tried looking for that same stranger, although I couldn't even remember what he really looked like. But I still tried to find him. But I didn't. I didn't find him. But I met someone else. Someone interesting. He approached me where I sat and offered to buy me a drink, but I refused. I thought he would go away after that. But he sat beside me, and he started talking to me. The crazy thing was he didn't say anything personal. He just kept talking about random things. He didn't even introduce himself to me. And I liked it. I liked how he flirted with me, without knowing that I was married. We spoke for an hour, and we didn't say anything important. Not once. He finally asked me if I would like to go with him to his place. I know that I shouldn't have, but I agreed. I felt so comfortable with him, and I didn't even think he would harm me. We left the club together and went to his place. His house was small but cozy, and he seemed like he didn't live alone. From all of the female stuff around the house, but I didn't care. I wasn't exactly single either. So when he led me to his bed, I went willingly. It was only halfway through the whole thing that he told me his name. Brad. It was the name he gave me. But I knew he was lying. His ID card had been lying carelessly on his sofa when I came in, and I knew his name wasn't Brad. So when he asked for my name, I gave him a nickname, the one I created for myself, when I started to imagine living a wild lifestyle. Kitty. I did feel like a wild cat living a double life. Brad liked the name, and it was what he called me throughout our relationship. It was weeks after we started sleeping together that he told me that he nicknamed his male genital Brad. I was surprised by it. I didn't know any men gave their male genital names, because Umar certainly didn't, but it made the whole experience with him even more alluring. After that first night with Brad, I collected his number and promised to text him whenever I needed to, and I did contact him, not days later. But after I got home that night, Dot and Brad responded almost immediately. He told me he enjoyed himself, and that he couldn't wait for us to meet again. I really thought that I would feel guilty afterwards, Dot, like I did the first time, but I was more excited than guilty. When I looked in the mirror that night, I found all the love bites on my skin. I felt sexy and needed. I thought I finally felt like a woman was supposed to feel, and I truly loved it. But for a week after that, I pretended to be sick, so that I didn't have to be with Umar, just to hide the marks. And when they finally faded off, I refused to let Brad brand me again. I was trying to play safe. As much as I was having fun, I still loved Umar, and I didn't want to get caught. Brad and I would meet up mostly at his place. I knew he had a girlfriend or perhaps a wife, but I never asked. She was mostly never around whenever I was there anyway, so I thought it was nice. We were just two strangers having fun. Nothing attached to it. I got to have fun while still living as Umar's wife. I didn't know what Brad did for work or any other valid information about him. All I knew was that he was always available for me, whenever I needed him, although he found out about my marriage barely 2 weeks into the whole thing. But he didn't mind. It means we can do this without any expectations from each other. It makes it even more dangerous and sexy. That was what he said when he found out. And I got really addicted to him. I wasn't in love with him, I knew that for sure, but I was crazily obsessed with his body and how he made me feel. Brad taught me everything I didn't know about sex, the crazy things that I never thought possible. And the one time he introduced me to role play, I got addicted real quick. I couldn't even get in the mood if I wasn't acting like a different person. And I knew how Brad loved me in red, so I wore it almost every time I went to his place. I even started to buy all of my underwear in red. And Umar noticed it, but I told him that red was now a favorite color of mine. He said nothing about it. I knew he didn't like it at all, but I was past caring. All I wanted to do was live out my life playing both sides, and Brad made that possible. We literally lived to please each other's sexual fantasy. Months passed, and I still didn't get caught. I grew rather confident, and I started inviting Brad over to the house. He would come around whenever Umar wasn't home. He slept over sometimes too, on days when Umar was on his usual business trips. Everything continued like that until Umar started to get suspicious. And it had been his mother who started it. After I started sleeping with Brad, my form of dressing changed. I bought different sexy dresses, and I wore them whenever I went over to Brad's place, or whenever I was home alone. I liked how I looked in them, and Brad would always compliment me too. "You look sexy in that dress," or he was saying some crude sexual slang whenever he saw me in a new sexy dress. It encouraged me to get even shorter and sexier dresses. Some barely covered anything, and some covered just the parts that needed to be covered while the rest was exposed. And I wore them like that confidently, until Umar's mother came visiting that day, and she caught me wearing a revealing dress. I was so shocked when I saw her, and I quickly went to change, although I lied to her that I only wore them at home and nowhere else. The 4 days she stayed felt like hell. She kept scrutinizing me. It was like I was getting married all over again. And she kept going on and on about giving her grandkids. And there was the fact that I couldn't even leave the house or invite Brad over, even though I desperately wanted to. She also told Umar about the clothes she caught me with. Although Umar supported me in front of her and questioned me afterwards, He told her that he bought me the dress because he wanted me to look like that for him alone. And when he asked me about the dress, I lied to him that it was only that one dress, and that I bought it just to dress sexy for him. But Umar told me to get rid of the dress. He said that he didn't want me doing anything I wasn't comfortable with, just to please him, and I promised him that I would get rid of the dress. But I was lying again. It was something I got so good at after I started living a double life. I remember how Brad laughed hard when I told him about it. He teased me about it for weeks after that, but I didn't mind it. I thought the most important thing was that I got away with it. But another thing happened again, and it caused a huge fight between Umar and I. It was the first time we were ever having that sort of argument. Usually we would settle things within a day or two, but this time it took us a whole week before we got over it. The house next door where my friends lived before, it was finally bought by an old woman. Actually, her kids bought her the house to stay in. She had refused to live with any of them, so they had no choice but to buy her something a little close to their place. But this woman was far too nosy. She acted so much like my mother-in-law, and it didn't help matters that Umar liked her very much. Whenever he was around, he spent his time talking to her. Sometimes he even invited her over for dinner at our place. She didn't like me very much, but I never cared. The feeling was mutual. I knew she had always seen Brad come and go from the house. And she must have also seen me leave the house in my revealing outfits. I knew she disapproved of my lifestyle, even though she wasn't a Muslim. But I had always thought that she would never mention anything to my husband, especially because she never said anything before. But I guess she wasn't comfortable minding her own business anymore, because she told Umar. She told him about the man always coming around and the dresses I wore. Umar was so angry. He confronted me about it, but I denied everything. Instead, I accused him of not trusting me. I used the fact that the old woman had a medical condition, and her drugs were so strong and had side effects, one of which was hallucinations. I got so angry with him for believing her over me, and I packed a small bag and left the house. I told him that I was going to visit my parents for a while, until I was calm, but I had gone to Brad's place instead, and I stayed there for a whole week. I switched off my phone. I didn't want Umar calling me. I wanted him to think I was still angry with him. It was only when I turned on my phone on the 6th day. I saw several messages from Umar, and my parents too. He must have called them to ask if I was there. So I had to go home the next day. I told him that I stayed with a friend, that I didn't want to upset my parents by going there. Umar apologized severally for accusing me wrongly. He promised to trust me and never doubt me again, and I pretended like I still needed a little pacifying before I could forgive him totally. In truth, I was just really glad I still wasn't caught. But the truth will always come out eventually, no matter how hard you tried to hide it, and in my case, I was so confident that the truth would never come out. Until that horrible evening. It was our anniversary, and Umar, who had been trying to make it up to me, ever since that day. So he decided we should go out for dinner to celebrate. Usually we always celebrated at home. We would spend the day together, all day, at home, but not this time. He said he wanted us to do something special, and I was pretty excited. I decided that I was going to wear a dress this time, not something revealing, but something that didn't cover me up like always. I wanted it to be a surprise to Umar, so I didn't tell him anything about it. I bought a dress online with matching heels. I even got a new bag. I planned to meet Umar at the restaurant. He sent me the address that morning before he left for work, and I spent nearly all day getting ready. Then when it was time, I went to the restaurant by myself. Because of how excited I was for Umar to see the new me, I went there 30 minutes earlier than the time we agreed on. Umar had texted me earlier that he was going to be a little late, but I didn't mind. So when I got to the restaurant, I sat there waiting nervously for Umar when something very shocking happened. A waiter came to my table to collect my order, but shockingly, the waiter turned out to be Brad. I was so shocked to see him. I never knew he worked there. To be honest, I was never really interested in finding out what other things he spent his time on, but seeing him there was totally shocking. But Brad recovered easily. He attended to me, asked me what I wanted, and I quickly requested a drink so I could quickly dismiss him. I didn't want Umar to arrive and see him there, but I was out of luck. Brad came back with my drink, and while he was dropping it off on the table, He leaned in and made that awful comment. And Umar, he was right behind him. He must have finished work earlier than he planned and decided to come over to wait for me. And he heard what Brad said to me. I was so shocked when I saw Umar standing there frozen. I cleared my throat in fear. And Brad, he finally noticed Umar, and he quickly left. Umar was obviously angry. There was no doubt that he heard, and he just stood there and stared at me. I felt so uncomfortable and scared. I couldn't say anything. Then after a few seconds, Umar just turned around and left. I followed him immediately, but he just drove off without allowing me to get into his car. I called a cab and went home, hoping that he went home too. I remember how scared I was. I didn't know what to do or say. I didn't know how to avoid the disaster that was happening. I was so lost in thought that the driver had to tap me when I got home. As I hoped, Umar's car was parked outside. I went inside and found Umar sitting quietly on the chair. He didn't even look at me when I walked in. He just simply stared at his phone. I went to him nervously and tried saying something, but Umar cut me off. You were cheating on me, and still had the guts to do it in public too? He said it with so much conviction, and I sincerely thought he knew everything, so I just went on my knees and started crying. I begged him to forgive me. I was desperate to give him reasons why I did the things I did, and I only ended up confessing everything I've done. I told him about the first time, the dresses, and Brad too. I swore that Brad meant nothing to me, that I was only seeing him for fun. I told him I still love him, and that I would do anything to earn his forgiveness. Umar looked so pained when I finished confessing everything. You've taken me for a fool all these while. You made me believe I was insane when I accused you of cheating. You're a disgusting woman, Aisha. Those were the last words that Umar said to me, and since then, he hasn't spoken to me. He just removed his hand from mine when I tried to grab his hand, and he left me there on my knees. He didn't come back home that night or the night after that, or any other night since then. Whenever he did come around, it was only to park a different bag. He wouldn't tell me where he's staying or when he would come back home. He's not asking me for space to think. He just literally ignores me. Every time I call, he never returns them or reply to my text, even when I went to his office. He asked his assistant to tell me he wasn't available, but I knew he was. His car was in the driveway. I haven't seen Brad since then, too. He stopped taking my calls, and whenever I went to his house, his door was locked. It was almost like he was avoiding me, like he's left me to face the consequences of our actions, and I'm so helpless. I don't know what else to do. A whole month of restlessness. I don't think I can continue even another day like this. What can I do? I'll do anything to get Umar to forgive me. Anything at all. I'm really desperate. Update. It's been almost 2 months since my previous post here. The one I came here to express myself, hoping that I could find some sort of solace, or perhaps help here. I thought that maybe someone somewhere would understand my struggles, and actually offer some advice, or some suggestions on how to fix things. I cannot lie and say I didn't expect the insults and harsh comments. But I didn't expect it to be this much. You people have succeeded in making me feel like a fool. Forever thinking that I could get out of this unscathed. Your words, harsh and piercing, have made me realize just how deluded I was. Thinking that everything could get resolved if I just put in more effort, if I just begged and begged until Umar had a change of heart. But that didn't happen, and I don't think that it would ever happen. I stay far away from my place now, in a different city entirely, and it was because I had to hide away from everyone who knows my story. Umar had ensured that I suffered for what I did to him. Umar somehow found evidence of my affair, a CCTV camera, one that I never knew existed throughout my marriage to Umar. Maybe because we never used it, or maybe because it was hidden in an unnoticeable place in the house. But it is still able to capture things properly. Umar had gotten videos from it, and he posted it, not just on our family group, but on the Muslim community group we were on. That group contained thousands of people, most of them, which I knew. Umar posted the videos there, alongside pictures of my red underwear that I wore to please my lover Dot, and he tagged the videos and pictures a cheating Muslim wife. I was so shocked when I saw it. I was being insulted by the group. I was termed a disgrace to Islam. My parents kept calling me, but I couldn't bring myself to pick their calls. All that was on mind were questions. Why? Why did it take Umar so long to do those things, after a whole month of keeping silent? After making me believe that I could still work things out between us. He decided to just do that after all that. Or maybe he hadn't remembered the CCTV camera either. I kept wondering and panicking, but Umar cleared my doubts. He came home the second day, after publicly disgracing me, and he handed me divorce papers. I was biding my time. I wanted you to relax and think you've gotten away with it. A divorce was never going to be enough to satisfy my anger. I had to punish you when you least expected it, and I have. That was what he said to me when I asked him why he waited that long to do what he did, and he said so with a smile on his face. Umar looked so different that day. He didn't look like the man who used to love and adore me, Dot. He didn't look at all like the man I married, and I was to blame. I created that monster. So I just sat there and cried. I cried really hard. The same way I've done every day since then. Even now that I write this, I do it with tears on my face, because I've ended up destroying the only good thing about my life. Umar asked me to sign the document and then leave. He gave me 2 days, and according to him, those 2 days were only because he wanted everything that could remind him of me totally cleared out. I had nowhere else to go. I knew my parents were angry with me. They were respected Muslim leaders, and my actions would affect them enormously. Dot coupled with the fact that the long text that my mother sent me expressed that. After refusing to pick their calls, my mother texted me. She expressed her disappointment and how ashamed of me they were, and she ended the text with, "Your father doesn't want to see you for now," and I agree with him. They practically wanted nothing to do with me, and none of my friends were willing to talk to me either. They all were disgusted by my actions, and they avoided me like a plague. Well, except my old friends. I called them for help, and they were happy to help me. They had even paid for my trip down to their place. At first, I didn't tell them anything. I just lied that I missed them, and only came to visit. But after 2 weeks, I couldn't withhold the truth from them. Not when I cried every night since I moved there, but after hearing my story, and why I needed to move far away. They started to react differently. By the end of that month, they stylishly asked me to move out. They said that they couldn't afford feeding an extra person, and the space was too small for us all. I had no choice but to leave, and after roaming the streets for days, I found a job and a place to stay. It's a waiting job, a place that wasn't much bigger than a storeroom, but I have no choice but to bear it. There's no other place I could go to, and I know that I wouldn't have ended up this way. If I hadn't been so stupid, Dot, if only I had been satisfied and happy. But I let my greed lead me, and it kept leading me until it led me into a trap. One that I can now never get out of. Dot, words are honestly not enough to express how bad I feel. I hate myself so much. I wish that I had been content with what I had, which honestly was more than enough. Umar loved me. He made sure I was comfortable. He didn't bother me with kids or anything else. He was kind and patient, and I ruined everything. I wish that I hadn't cheated on Umar the way I did. By now, I would still be with him, maybe eating a cake or two for my birthday today. But that's very impossible now, not with the way he was so meticulous about getting revenge. His hate already corrodes his love for me, and I know that he will never forgive me, because even I haven't been able to forgive myself, or find peace since then. All for pleasure, I gave away my present and future for someone like Brad, the cowardly Brad. I have no idea where or what he is up to till this day. He never once called to ask if I was okay, or how I was surviving the aftermath of our affair. He just simply disappeared. But I do not blame him, not one bit. It's totally and absolutely my fault. Because if I hadn't found myself in that club that night, in search of what was never missing, I wouldn't have met him, or even repeated my sins again, after the first one was literally overlooked. But I kept testing karma, and now I've been bitten back in a way that can never be healed, and honestly, I don't think I will ever recover from this. But I know that Brad will definitely get his own consequences, if he's not already dealing with it. Dot. But even that doesn't give me any sort of peace or joy. I know that I certainly got the shorter end of the stick, and I don't think anything can supersede what I have to go through every day now, for the rest of my life. I'm stuck with the what ifs, And the had I known? Umar's mother will probably have no problem finding him a wife again. Perhaps the same girl she had always wanted for him. She isn't married yet anyway. She had always loved Umar. And I'm sure she will jump right into the marriage once Umar agrees. She will probably give him a child, one that his mother had always craved forever for. But the thought of that hurts so much. It feels so horrible thinking of Umar with another woman, smiling at her the way he had done with me, or worse, loving her the way he did with me, or more. I know that I lost that chance when I decided to cheat on him. I lost every right over him the moment he discovered my lies. But it still doesn't make it any less painful. I wish that this was a nightmare, one I will wake up from any moment from now, but I find myself reliving the nightmare every day since then, and it's just totally heartbreaking. Another thing I've had to deal with is the silence and loneliness. It's so bad it feels like I'm losing my mind half the time. Every night I have to go to bed alone. Every night that I spend tossing around through the night with no one. No Umar to hold me and comfort me. It's just devastating, wishing for something you once had, but will never have again, not even in a dream. This is my last post here. I know all of you do not care whether or not I survive all of these. I just hope that none of you end up like me, sad, empty, and damaged beyond repair. Goodbye, guys.